Alrighty, so in the last video, I asked for you guys to give me an idea of what abilities you would like to see Minato be capable of doing, and we got a lot of interesting responses, but something that I didn't think of occurred. So many of you had similar, if not the same ideas. It seemed like an overwhelming majority of users wanted this, so I'll do it. Instead of just taking one idea from a user, I'm going to conglomerate the powers most of you desired and create a technique based on what the majority of you said. Special thanks to everyone in the comments who came up with these ideas. I know that I said I'd mention those responsible for the techniques chosen, but there were so many with similar ideas that I don't want to accidentally forget one. But think of it like this. If your ability seems somehow related to the abilities I came up with, then know you were likely a part of my process in making it. So let's begin with the first eye. One thing I saw a lot in the comments was reference to Madara's ability to see into the future. I kinda like that idea. The technique I have planned sorta reminds me of King Crimson's epitaph a little, in that Minato will randomly get visions that he can't exactly control when something important is about to happen. I'm going to call this technique Kuebiko, after the Japanese kami of the same name, a scarecrow who, despite having intense knowledge, references his inability to move and deal with it. Sounds like a hopeless ability, correct? To be able to know the future and not be able to do anything about it. Well, that's where the second ability comes in, Isetsuhiko. Isetsuhiko is the name of a wind kami that references swiftness. This ability will give Minato the ability to control space-time. A lot of you submitted abilities in which Minato could teleport without the need for his flying Raijin marks, and a lot of you also hoped for an ability in which Minato could rewind, stop, or fast-forward time. This ability is very JoJo-esque as well. I decided to mix these abilities together, allowing Minato to either teleport to a new location that he's thinking about, or to stop time entirely for a few seconds to allow him to move, which would further increase his speed. Once again, I'm sorry for not mentioning anyone directly, but please know that if your comment included space-time manipulation, including seeing the future as well as teleportation and time stop, rewind, and fast forward, well, you were the inspiration for these abilities. So a special shout out to you all. Now, for the moment you've all been waiting for, let's get into the video. Let me just say welcome to the Amagi. Before we see what Minato's up to, I'd like to remind you that only 25% of our viewers are subscribed. If you enjoy our content, double check to see if you are subscribed so we can bring you more of what you enjoy. Now, where's this story going? Minato's eyes opened on one summer day to look up into the ceiling. Today was just another day, and though he felt like wasting it in bed, he knew he had responsibilities to take care of. The scent of bacon and eggs frying in the distance caught his nose and beckoned to him. Smiling, he began to get up. That's when the fire alarm went off. Panicking, Minato raced out of his room, tripping and falling down the stairs. "Minato!" Kushina cried out as she stopped flapping the oven mitt in the direction of the screeching box on the ceiling. "Where's the fire?" he asked. "There's no fire, baby. It was just smoke from the bacon." He began to rise. "Are you okay?" she asked. He nodded. "Yeah, why did the alarm go off?" "Well, it's because I'm making a lot of bacon today. We have guests." Looking over Kushina's shoulder, he saw Kakashi, Obito, and Rin. Kakashi as stoic as ever, Rin averting her eyes, and Obito laughing and pointing. "Nice boxers, Minato-sensei," he shouted. Minato looked down to realize he was still wearing his heart-covered boxers. His face turned red with embarrassment. Taking Kushina's oven mitt as if it could do anything, he retreated to the upstairs bedroom where he could make himself look presentable. Kushina turned around with a sigh. "Obito, did you really have to say all of that?" Obito wiped his eye. "Sorry, Miss Kushina, I just couldn't help myself." Kushina began to set out the plates and cups. She began to divvy up the food. "Orange or apple?" she asked. "Orange," Kakashi said. Rin followed up with apple, and Obito, simply because Rin chose it and Kakashi didn't, chose apple as well. Kushina then poured the juice of each flavor into the cups, getting some orange for herself and Minato. Eventually, Minato met them downstairs in his full shinobi attire. "Sorry about that, guys. I was just waking up." "Like sleeping in, huh?" Kakashi said, his skepticism clear on his face. Minato, attempting to take charge of the situation to reinforce his image among his students, spoke as he sat down. "Sometimes getting a little extra sleep is good for the body, mind, and soul. A good shinobi knows when to give 100% and when to rest." He looked up. "Besides, I just got back into the village yesterday from a secret mission." "A secret mission?" Obito exclaimed in excitement. "What was it about?" "It's a secret. You think I'd tell you?" Minato chuckled. Looking at his plate, he complimented the food, and by extension, the woman who had prepared it. As they sat there, they gave thanks to the one who provided the food in general and proceeded to eat. Everyone was very well-mannered, save Obito, who was scarfing while talking. "So, what are we doing today?" "I had planned for us to do a little training. The Chunin exams are just around the corner, and I've been nothing but impressed by Kakashi's abilities since we started our little mentoring arrangement. I think he's long since ready to be a Chunin, but I also have to think about Rin and you, Obito. I need to see if you're ready. As I've already taught you, a team lives and dies together, so I won't allow one of you to participate and not the rest. Don't you think that stunts my growth a little, Minato-sensei? Why should my future be dictated by a do-nothing like Obito? Hey, how dare you call me a do-nothing? The two were about to go to blows before Minato kicked them both in the shins, causing both boys to quickly pull their legs up only to bump their knees on the table. A double ow was heard from the two as Rin sat there bobbing her head, acknowledging her teammates getting what they deserved. Kakashi, don't be mean. Obito, don't be violent. Minato then spoke. Never forget that the person who decides whether you move up from Genin or not is me. When you're no longer a member of my team, you can choose for yourself how fast you grow, but until then, we all grow together, okay? Maybe I don't want to be a part of your stupid team, Kakashi muttered. Yeah, well, when you find a team that'll actually willingly take you, Kakashi, let me know and I'll transfer you. Kakashi sighed and looked away. Kakashi had always been a trouble Genin. Not because he broke the rules, but because he had such a bad habit of reporting everything everyone did, no matter how minor. He was such a stickler for the rules that to a point, he was impossible. He expected someone who would be the perfect Jonin who taught the perfect Chunin, and such a Jonin did not exist in Konoha. Kakashi's bar was so high that it left him with nobody to choose from. He had to choose imperfect teams, and when they didn't meet his standards, he reported them. And when he reported them, his entire team grew to dislike Kakashi and would eventually request a transfer. Even Minato had been reported 3 or 4 times since he took on Kakashi, but at least Minato was patient. If he hadn't been, Kakashi's career would have been fried. Minato was Kakashi's last chance at being a shinobi, and maybe deep down Kakashi understood that too. Didn't make him alter his behavior any though, and Minato simply overlooked it. What are we going to be doing today, Minato-sensei? Rin asked. We're going to be doing a 3-way hunt. We're going to simulate a war between 3 villages of which you each will represent one member of that village. You 3 will seek each other out and attempt to defeat the other. So basically, this is a get curb stomped by Kakashi simulator, Kakashi said. This drew Obito's ire. I wouldn't be so sure, Minato said, because this isn't just a fight we're doing. There's a lot about war that's more than just combat. This is going to be a 4-day exercise. For the first day, as well as the second, you'll be spending time collecting food, attempting to survive on your own in the forest. What you'll take with you is nothing but a map of the area and a scroll. On the 3rd day, we'll do an intel gathering exercise. Your mission for that day will be to find the base of the other shinobi and try to take their scroll for yourself. But here's the catch. You can't take your scroll with you, nor can you open it up. And on day 4, we'll finally have a free-for-all battle, where the exercise doesn't end until only one remains. Wow, that sounds interesting. But what's with the first 3 days? Why do we have to do that? Why not just a regular battle? Obito asked. That's because this simulates the various missions we'll undertake as Chunin. So this is a get curb stomped by Kakashi extended edition exercise. Do a bunch of other stuff and still get beaten. Not exactly, Minato said. You see, within the scrolls will be a special item that you can't claim until the 4th day's final match. You won't be able to open the scroll for the first 3 days. But on 6 AM on the 4th day, the seals on the scrolls will break and you can retrieve whatever's inside of them. It could be a game changer. I doubt anything in those scrolls will be a game changer against me. We'll have to wait and see, Minato said. So after breakfast, they all went out to the forest to begin. Minato looked at his watch. It said it was noon. All right, time to go, he said. He handed them each a scroll. Go wherever you wish, any direction, so long as it remains within the forest. Remember, at 6 AM on day 3, wherever the scroll is that you hold, it can't move more than a 10-feet radius from its location, else it's an auto failure. Only those who do not own the scroll can break that part of the seal. If it's stolen and retrieved by the original owner, then they're free to carry it wherever they desire from that point onward. Be safe, be smart, and kick butt. Then they disappeared into the trees. Minato sat there for a while. What none of them noticed was that Minato had planted a tracking device on the scrolls, which allowed him to know exactly where they were on the map, something which would allow him to keep track of them over the next few days. Not only would it help him stay up to date on this little mock war he had set up, but it would also allow him to make sure that his students were in no real danger. Being able to keep tabs on them allowed him to know if they were starving to death or in some situation where their lives were on the line. That allowed him a manner of control over the situation that didn't muddy the waters too much. But of course, this was more than just a simple training exercise to grow physically stronger. There was a moral to it, and Minato wanted to teach his students that as well. So after a few hours, he would go check up on his team. Obito had found an old tree hollow where the bark was weak. He camouflaged the opening to it with some stripped bark that allowed him to hide within, stay warm, and out of the elements. He had done very well. He was currently out picking berries and finding nuts and mushrooms, things he could eat. Minato was very careful to teach them what they could and couldn't eat, and that being said, this was one of the more dangerous parts of the test that he couldn't affect. He just had to trust that they wouldn't eat anything poisonous, and if they did, he would have to take them to the hospital. He moved on and found that Rin had made her way to a river on the northern side of the forest. She had found an old abandoned cave where she was currently keeping warm. The water was clean and there were plenty of fish to catch. Currently, she was out in the river with a sharpened stick trying to spear her dinner. Minato then went to check on Kakashi. Kakashi had formed a lean-to for himself, which he had camouflaged pretty well using moss. Much like the others, he was gathering supplies. He already had wood for a fire and a little pit dug out of it, as well as what looked like a screen behind it that would hide the flame in all directions but what was facing his lean-to. Kakashi was currently stalking a deer nearby. "Don't scare it, Minato-sensei," he said in a whisper, acknowledging that he knew Minato was there, despite Minato being certain he was silent. He had to give Kakashi some credit. He left the group behind for some time. He was getting hungry himself. Heading back to Konoha, he grabbed himself a sub and a bag of chips before he returned to his own little base he had set up in the trees. As night fell upon them, Minato began to check up on them again. Obito was laying under the stars after eating, just looking up at the sky. "Psst," Minato said, drawing Obito's attention. "In war, it's not good practice to stay exposed at night." Obito smiled. "True, but we aren't technically at war, just simulating it, right?" Minato nodded. "Yes, but it's best that you treat it as you would if we were. It's a test." Obito understood. "Well then, good night, Minato-sensei." Obito entered the tree and closed the bark around it. Minato stopped by Rin's area to find that she had already fallen asleep in the cave, the fire still burning. As Minato looked at the fire, he knew she left it burning because it was cold in the cave, but such a thing normally gave people away. "My students need to be free to make their own mistakes," he said. "They just better not make these mistakes in the field, or everyone will die." He then turned around and looked for Kakashi. Kakashi was in his lean-to by the fire reading some book. Minato took a deep breath. Kakashi spoke again. "Before you ask, no. I don't normally leave a fire going all night. Frankly, on mission, I don't even build a fire unless it's so frigid cold that I'll die if I don't. But I'm not on a real mission, and knowing Rin and Obito, chances are they wouldn't be out looking for me anyway." Minato then spoke. "You shouldn't underestimate your teammates. They might up and surprise you one day," he said. Kakashi shrugged. "Maybe, but that day isn't today." Minato then left for his own base to sleep. He knew he could go home and sleep, and almost did, but decided not to. If he was going to make his students sleep in the cold, the least he could do was do it with them. The next day came, and everything seemed to be okay. They had enough food to survive on, so it was obvious that they knew how to survive. On the third day, though, things changed. They had to go search for intelligence, that being represented by the scrolls. Minato sat there, looking at his tracker to find that everyone's scrolls were stationary. There were 3 new blips, though. You see, while everyone was asleep the night before, Minato placed a new tracker on them that they shouldn't notice. And now those trackers were allowing Minato to stay informed. As the day began, Obito seemed to be the only one leaving his scroll behind. He was headed for Kakashi's camp. Minato, keeping a distance, tracked him. What Minato saw was strange. He saw Kakashi waiting outside of his camp, watching it. What's he doing? Minato wondered. He then saw Obito enter the camp, grab Kakashi's scroll, and take it out of the 10-foot radius. Kakashi then sprang into action, taking Obito down and taking his scroll back immediately. Clever boy, Minato said to himself. He baited Obito to take the scroll so he could break the seal and carry it with him elsewhere. He learned Kakashi was backtracking the signs Obito left behind to find his scroll. Yeah, Kakashi really is on a different level. After his failure, Obito made his way to Rin's camp. Minato decided to follow Kakashi, only to find that he had already captured Obito's scroll as well. But as he watched Kakashi, suddenly Minato's Mangekyo Sharingan activated. He wasn't sure what was happening, but he got a vision in his eye. In this vision, he saw a still frame of Rin in the river, falling backwards as a grizzly bear approached her with hostility. Realizing Rin was in danger, Minato used his Isetsuhiko to teleport in that direction to an area nearby. As he did, he saw Rin was currently on the retreat, the bear advancing. It seems that the bear had been living in the cave where Rin had taken up residence and was now essentially repossessing her home. He nearly jumped down to defend her, but stopped when he saw Obito show up and attack the bear. Throwing paper bombs to the ground, along with smoke bombs and all manner of loud-sounding tools, he attempted to scare the beast away. But as this was happening, Kakashi stopped by. He saw them facing the bear, but instead took the scrolls for himself and left them. After the bear fled, Obito helped Rin to her feet and back to the cave, where he tended to her scraped knees. It was then that she discovered her scroll was missing. She threw a pebble at the side of Obito's head. "Ouch, what was that for?" he demanded. "That's for stealing my scroll." "It wasn't me," he shouted. "Well, there was nobody else around," she told him. Obito displayed his empty pockets. "It wasn't me. It was probably stupid Kakashi. For all I know, he's taken my scroll too." Rin sighed and looked down. his skill and technique, and now he has all the scrolls? I think it's GG, Obito. We've already lost. Obito shook his head. I'm not giving up without a fight. Even if he kicks my butt, I'll make him pay the toll. He walked over to her and helped her up. You should stick with me tonight. Since neither of us have anything to gain or lose, we might as well stick together. Not to mention, you need a better place to stay. If that bear comes back while you're sleeping, you're cooked. Rin had to admit this was true. Besides, if we work together, maybe we can defeat Kakashi. Even if he has all the scrolls, our teamwork could still outclass him. Rin had to admit Obito had a point. And if we defeat Kakashi, then we can fight for victory if you want. Rin nodded and followed his lead. Minato smiled as he watched. This was exactly what he hoped they would do. And so, the fourth and final day came. Minato fired a flare gun into the air that would catch the attention of his team, causing them to head toward where the flare came from. Upon getting there, Rin and Obito were ready to face Kakashi, who was arriving at the same time. "We're gonna defeat you, Kakashi," Obito exclaimed. Kakashi smiled. 2 versus 1. You really are desperate. But whatever, maybe it'll give you a chance now that I have these. He pulled out all 3 scrolls. Feels just like Christmas morning. Now to see what I got. He opened the first scroll. From inside, he pulled a fidget spinner. Huh? Kakashi checked the scroll, but all it contained was that little toy. Quickly, he opened the other 2 and found that all that remained within them was a cute plush bear and a new book titled The Tale of the Utterly Gutsy Shinobi. Kakashi was confused. "Minato-sensei, what's this?" Minato smiled and scratched the back of his head. "They're gifts I got you guys for this test. You said the scrolls would be game changers," he shouted. Minato nodded. "Yeah, they are. Just look at Rin and Obito. They've teamed up against you. The game certainly has changed." Kakashi shook his head. "That's not fair, Minato-sensei." "It's plenty fair. Now fight." The 3 clashed, but Obito and Rin fought together, whereas Kakashi fought alone. Despite how good Kakashi was, Rin and Obito's teamwork seemed to give him a run for his money. It was coming down to the wire, as the difference between Kakashi and each individual peer was being covered by their teamwork. In the end, Obito and Rin still lost, but not without pushing Kakashi to his absolute limit. As they all fell back after Kakashi's victory, Minato knelt by his students and spoke. "Do you understand the meaning of this little training exercise?" "That you're a dirty cheater," Kakashi said. Minato chuckled. "No. The meaning is that sometimes mercy is as important as anything else. Everyone we face, even if they're our enemy, is a person. Each of them fighting for the honor of their village. Many of them you might have been friends with if they had been born in Konoha. Sometimes the best way to win a war isn't to kill someone or leave them to die, but to rescue them. We won't always be at war. Yesterday's enemies could become tomorrow's allies, and one day, when the bitter cold of the next world threat comes, you're gonna wish you had more friends. That's what I was teaching you guys here today." Obito and Rin picked it up. "You did not, Kakashi, but I won't fail you because you did complete what I asked you to do. I just wish you'd open your heart and let your team in. You're so strong, but you all could be so much stronger if you just worked together. Anyway, as to reward you all for surviving this, the gifts in the scrolls are for you." He offered Rin the plush bear. "It's ironic that you got attacked by a bear." "You sure you didn't have anything to do with that?" she asked with a smile. Minato couldn't help but smile. There might have been a summoning contract in his back pocket that he never wanted them to know about. He then looked at Kakashi. "For you, the tale of the utterly gutsy shinobi. I know you enjoy Jiraiya-sensei's works, but I think I'd be happier seeing you read this one rather than the smut he tends to write. Maybe you can learn something from Naruto." He then turned to Obito. "Yours is the simplest one of them all, Obito, but it's the most special." He held up the spinner. It was red and possessed Tomoe on it. It looked as if it were designed after the Sharingan. "When I was your age, my brother Ko gave this to me. I was caught in a bad place where I was afraid I'd have to leave him behind. He told me to use it to always remember the family I had, and that no matter the distance, people always loved me." He put it in Obito's hand. Obito, being the crybaby he was, couldn't help but tear up over this. "Thanks, Minato-sensei." Minato put his hand on Obito's shoulder. "I know you've been upset because your Sharingan hasn't awakened yet, but you must know there's so much more to being an Uchiha. So much more than just a special eye that some people never awaken. The Uchiha are the clan of heart. Easily wounded, we die for those we love. Never let go of love, Obito. Hate will come and try to take it from you, as it tried to do when I lost my brother. But if you hold on to love no matter what, the darkness will slowly fade. That's the truth that the Sharingan sees. Love conquers hate. Light conquers darkness." After this, the Chunin exams did come around, and while Kakashi seamlessly passed, as did Rin, Obito did not. Minato did his best to help Obito keep courage, and so for the next year, Obito pushed his limits until he made it to Chunin. both fortunately and unfortunately. The day Obito passed the Chunin exams, Kakashi became a Jonin, and that was really tough. Obito felt overshadowed, but Minato was sure to help Obito know that he was seen, giving him a special kunai just as he had given to Kakashi, and taking them out to eat to celebrate my team's advancement and growth, as Minato said. But it was at this time that the Third Shinobi World War was being waged, and eventually his team would be sent to war as well. Their mission was very simple: find the Kanabi Bridge and destroy it. Doing so would cut supply lines to Iwagakure, which would expedite the end of the war. When the village could no longer withstand the weight of their own poverty and starvation, they would sue for peace, and Konoha would gladly give it to them. But as the mission began, Minato had a vision. In his vision, he saw Fugaku Uchiha, one of his closest friends, facing off against more ninja than his little squad could handle. So he passed the role of team leader off to Kakashi for the time being, charging him with completing the mission while Minato rescued Fugaku. Kakashi would leave with his team to do exactly what he was sent to do, and Minato would leave to rescue Fugaku. Appearing on the battlefield, he met up with Fugaku. "Fugaku!" he cried out. Fugaku looked back. "Minato, what are you doing here? I had a Kuebiko vision through my Mangekyo Sharingan that you were in danger. I can see that it was true." "Minato, you gotta get out of here. We're surrounded. They're gonna come at us at any time." Minato shook his head. "No, we can handle it." Fugaku looked down. "I'm not so sure we can. I attempted to attack them and defend my squad with Susanoo, but..." "But what?" Minato asked. Fugaku took a deep breath and sighed. "They smashed through it. There's just too many of them. They'll kill us." Minato shook his head. "No, I won't let that happen." Minato crawled out of the trench Fugaku and his team had dug out to protect them. Walking to the center of the battlefield, he awaited their attack. The Iwanin that surrounded them laughed as Fugaku covered his eyes. He couldn't stand to watch his best friend be slaughtered. Or perhaps it was simply that everyone was underestimating Minato. He looked forward toward the others. "Come and get me!" he shouted. They began to rush at him. Minato summoned his Susanoo, a brilliant gold Susanoo, sparkling like lightning from the sky. It rose and bore its weapon and armor. As they drew closer to him, it almost looked as if Minato's Susanoo was teleporting around and killing swath after swath. People fell to the ground without even realizing that they had just died. Fugaku was amazed. While this had seemed like magic to everyone else, this was just Minato using his ability as he always had. And what that ability allowed was for him to not only teleport, but to stop time for a moment. When time stopped moving, only Minato could move within it. To him, the world faded to gray. People who were in the middle of running were partially off the ground. People in the middle of a blink had the weirdest expressions, and those who Minato killed would remain unaware of their death until time resumed. It was such a strange feeling when time was no longer moving. Minato could feel his own heartbeat had stopped. He no longer needed to breathe. Only when he stopped time was he consciously aware of the sound his own heartbeat made, because now there was nothing there for his hearing to detect. He recognized its absence. It was eerily quiet to know that the whole universe had stopped moving. The only sound to be heard was Minato's own breathing and the sound of the stones beneath his feet. In the form of his Susanoo, he began to carve large swaths through the enemy. The longer he held time stopped, though, the more his eye began to strain, burning like he hadn't blinked it, despite it being closed. It felt like pink eye the longer he held it, and with Susanoo on top of it all, he could do nothing more than cry tears of blood. He had to shut it off for a moment to let time move again. The sudden return of all sounds and sensations was a shock to his system every time. In this way, Minato hated stopping time, but he couldn't lie. It was a valuable technique to have. One guy who was currently running toward Minato saw Minato jump from one location to another. He then turned to continue chasing Minato before his legs fell out from under him. He had been bisected just below the ribs and didn't even know how it happened. But as he laid there and perished, he looked around and saw shinobi from all around falling and dying as well, with no apparent cause save the sudden appearance of marks shaped like the Susanoo's trail. Minato's movements were so fast and impressive that neither Sharingan nor Byakugan could track him. This was the full speed of Konoha's Black Flash. His nickname no longer derived from his black hair, but because he moved so fast that one could not even see the trail. He just stopped existing in one location and started existing in another. It was so fast that at times there appeared to be two Minatos on the field, and this wasn't a trick of the light. There truly were two of him, one from before time was stopped and another one after time was stopped. The distance between the moments was so infinitely minuscule that even reality couldn't keep up, and there were simply two on the field for every time he stopped. More than once, Minato even seemed to notice his future self where he was going before he even got there. That's how fast he was. His speed and time hacks was just that good. He was all but invincible for so long as the technique lasted, and within a few moments the tide had completely turned. The Iwa nin were running so fast from him that the moment the story reached Iwa, they declared a flee-on-sight order of the highest magnitude. There simply was no way to fight him, so all shinobi in Iwa were simply told to drop everything and flee the moment he came around. Minato, though, had strained his eyes, and while he waited, he knew he needed to recover, as there was so much blood in his eyes he could hardly see. Fugaku let him rest for a time in the trenches with them, and then he was free to clean out his eyes, get something to eat, and take a short nap. The chakra drain from using this technique was high, and Minato needed time to rest, so that's exactly what he did. But as he rested, his Mangekyo activated again, and he saw something. He saw a half-blinded Kakashi rushing from a cave as Obito was crushed. Sitting up, he realized what he had seen. Apologizing to Fugaku for leaving so abruptly, he teleported to where he was going only to see the cave from his dreams. Seeing the cave collapsing, he disposed quickly of the shinobi who had done this, and then proceeded to the mouth of the cave where he saw Rin rush out. He pulled her closer and looked inside to see Obito throw Kakashi out of the cave just as the ceiling began to come down. "Isetsuhiko!" he shouted as time around him came to a stop. He couldn't hold it for long. He rushed in toward Obito. Suddenly, time began again. Kakashi hit the ground and looked back. Rin cried out, "Obito! Minato-sensei!" She began to cry loudly as she fell to her knees. Kakashi stood, unable to believe that his mentor and his teammate were gone. As he sat there, unsure of what to do, he suddenly heard a rumble. From out of the rubble, a giant golden Susanoo appeared, rising up. Within the chakra avatar, a bloody Minato stood. In his arms, an equally bloody and unconscious Obito. The Susanoo stood up in the sun, gleaming like a guardian angel who had fulfilled its duty, disappearing like the same. Minato touched the ground, falling to his knees. He still held Obito. Rin rushed over. She began to quickly check over Obito as the team's own personal medic. Kakashi walked over to Minato. "Sensei, are you okay?" Minato nodded. "Yes, I am, but I'm so tired." It was about that time that other shinobi appeared, ready to kill them while they were weakened. Obito began to stir, and Rin let out a sigh of relief to find that he wasn't mortally injured. She had yet to notice that they were surrounded. Minato knew he didn't have the strength left to fight, but he had enough strength to do something else. Pulling his team close, he stopped time, covering them in his Susanoo, and used the Susanoo to jump away from the area, landing near a cave that they entered to rest. Letting time resume, he promptly passed out from exhaustion. Obito and Minato needed more time to recover, but thankfully Kakashi somehow managed to get a hold of a military ration pill, which brought the both of them back to full strength. As Minato began to rise, he noticed Obito sitting there, having taken the goggles off his face. "Are they broken?" he asked. Obito shook his head. No, I don't think I need them anymore." He tossed them to the side. He smiled. "Minato-sensei, look!" Minato looked closely and noticed that Obito had awakened his Sharingan. They were really early in development, possessing only one Tomoe each, but his Sharingan had awakened. Minato hugged onto his student with such joy. "You did it! You awakened your Sharingan! I found my courage, sensei! I found it!" he said as he looked at him through the spinning red pinwheel iris. "I made the decision to rescue Rin no matter the cost, and to protect Kakashi, and when I did, they manifested. It's proof of your development, Obito. Their awakening are proof of the inner strength you've summoned and the character growth you've experienced. You're one step closer to your goals." He then noticed Kakashi sitting there by Rin. He seemed upset. He walked over. "Kakashi, are you okay?" Rin looked back at her sensei. "I'm sorry, I couldn't save it. It's totaled." That's when Minato noticed Kakashi's new scar, going across his right eye. He pulled forward to hug Kakashi. "It's okay, Kakashi, it's not the end of the world. You can still make a good shinobi, even with one eye." "But my potential is stunted," Kakashi said. Minato shook his head. "No, Kakashi, it's not. You may be blinded in one eye, but the only limits are the ones that you put on yourself. If you say that you'll never become a good shinobi because of this, then you won't. But if you believe that you will become a good shinobi in spite of this, then you will. Trust me, it'll be okay." And so, the group left the cave. Making their way to the bridge, they set the explosives and got back. The entire bridge went up in a puff of smoke, just like that. And with their mission completed, Minato teleported them out via his flying Raijin Jutsu. Having completed their missions, their careers were fast-tracked to becoming Jonin. The mission had taught them a lot of things. It taught Obito the true strength he had. As for Kakashi, it showed him how to stop looking at himself and his own abilities, and instead to rely on his team more. Kakashi was humbled, and Obito's confidence was boosted. And though Minato hated that Kakashi was now blinded in one eye, he was happy to see that he was finally understanding how being part of a team actually worked. Minato also knew there was a chance that Kakashi might not remain blind forever. Science was quickly advancing, and very soon he might be able to see again. Slowly, the Third Shinobi World War began to wind down, and with that, the dangers had slowly begun to pass. At about this time, Hiruzen decided to step down as Hokage, and in return named Minato as the 4th Hokage, the first Uchiha to ever be named as such. It was truly an honor for Minato, and a source of pride for the Uchiha clan, who finally began to feel like they were really a part of the Hidden Leaf, as opposed to prestigious outsiders as they had felt for so long. Good things were coming. Minato, finally sensing a lasting peace on the horizon, and after hearing some good news from Fugaku, would speak with Kushina about the possibility of bringing new life into their world. And through the union of their love, Kushina became pregnant with their firstborn, a son that they would name Naruto, to honor Jiraiya, who had taught Minato so much. Minato would commission his students to watch over Kushina and protect her. The way they did this was by sticking really close, spending time with her and helping her around the house. It was real genin work, but it was truly an honor to be chosen by their mentor to guard his very wife until she came to full term. They became true members of the family, and as the days of her term came to a close, Minato wanted them to be there. As Kushina was rushed to the secret location, Kakashi and Obito were set to guard the entrance, and Rin was sent to help Biwako deliver. After all, if she was going to be a medical nin one day, as she hoped to be, she needed to learn this valuable lesson, something that, despite the gravity of it, Rin was more than capable of handling. And as the night came to a close, new life was brought into the world. Naruto Uchiha, a peaceful night. One where, indeed, Obito was there, but the Amagi finally didn't make him attack Kushina. You're welcome. As the child grew, Minato continued to fulfill his job as Hokage. There was an issue in that the youngest daughter of the clan head of the Hyuga was nearly kidnapped by Kumo forces, who were there to negotiate a ceasefire in a short spat they were having. During that time, the Kumo-nin were killed and a body was demanded. The only body Minato promised was the Raikage's if he didn't quit his crap and just sign the peace treaty, which the Raikage, after hearing and experiencing the true power of Minato Uchiha, would decide was best to sign. Not long after, word reached Minato that Orochimaru was doing some dirty dealings in the village and was responsible for the kidnap, inhumane experimentations, and ultimately the death of hundreds possessing Kekkei Genkai. Orochimaru would be confronted and brought to justice, imprisoned for what would be the rest of his life. True, lasting peace would finally be brought about through the efforts of Minato. As he sat back in his chair, he watched his students grow, and as his own child grew and entered the academy, he knew that one day he would assign one of his own students to teach him. But that was still a while away, and thus they lived happily forever after. Or did they? You know, I actually did have an idea of how I could create a new part to this story, or even a spin-off involving the life of Naruto following this story. Perhaps both. But that being said, I feel like this story is complete enough to be counted as a full story. However, if this video does well and enough of you request it in the comments below, we might consider extending it. That's why I'll leave it open for now. If you want to see that video, let us know in the comments and share this series with as many friends as you can. And while you're at it, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. As I said earlier, only 25% of you are subscribed to us, and it helps us out here a lot for you to click that simple button. I won't make you do it, nah, but don't be surprised if Minato Uchiha shows up at your house at 3 AM if you don't. Hey, I'm just trying to protect ya. Anyway, I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, and until next time, peace out.